Hey reader, if you've ever locked away a craving so dangerous it could torch every bond you cherish, then pull up a chair. This is my confession, the one I swore I'd take to my grave. If it cuts you deep, hit like and subscribe for more stories that don't flinch from the truth. Right now I'm sitting on the edge of a cheap motel bed at 2 a.m. The torn pieces of a single group photo scattered on the sheets, rain hammering the window like it's trying to wash me clean, but instead it just mirrors the tears I refuse to let fall. The three of us linked arm in arm, now separated forever, and each jagged edge cuts into my fingers as I trace them, reminding me of the damage I caused. The room smells of dampness and loneliness, the neon light flickering outside casting shadows that dance like accusations on the walls. My breath comes in short, and I feel the old ache rising again, hot and unforgiving. But to understand how 3 lives ended up in ruins, I have to start where it felt completely ordinary: a Friday night dinner at Mia and Ryan's house. Same as always. I was third eye fourth, freshly single after a breakup that left me hollow. The final words still rang in my ears some nights. The way he walked out, leaving the door clicking shut like a period on a sentence I was ready to end. My graphic design job paid the rent but sucked the color out of every day, turning creative ideas into soulless pixels under fluorescent lights that buzzed like a constant headache. Evenings meant frozen inners, the microwave beep the only highlight as I stood in my tiny kitchen poking at the meal that never quite filled the void. I'd scroll through Maya's perfect family posts on my phone, the glow illuminating my face in the dark room, watching their happy moments unfold while mine stayed still, wondering why my life felt like a waiting room with no appointment, just endless waiting for a turn that never came. That quiet dissatisfaction had settled into my bones until I almost believed it was permanent, a dull throb that followed me everywhere, making even small joys feel distant. I'd catch myself in the mirror, eyes tired, whispering to my reflection that this was just a season, but the words tasted like lies. The hunger for connection gnawed at me in the quiet hours, a secret I buried deep because admitting it felt like betrayal to the friendships I held dear. It was my own private storm brewing slowly, the kind that starts with gray skies and ends in downpour if you're not careful. Choosing solitude over reaching out, ashamed of how much I needed more than what I had. Yet that Friday dinner called to me like a beacon, the promise of laughter and warmth pulling me from my empty apartment. As I drove through the rain-slick streets, my hands tight on the wheel, I felt the dissatisfaction sharpen into something almost alive, a pull toward the light of their home that made my heart beat just a fraction faster. I told myself it was nothing, just the need for company, but deep down I knew the cracks were widening. Stepping out of the car, the cool air hitting my face, I paused at their door, breath held for a second too long, wondering if this ordinary night would finally break the silence inside me. The door swung open with that familiar creak, Maya's arms already reaching before I could even step inside, her hug pulling me into the warm glow of garlic and laughter like it always did. But over her shoulder Ryan stood there in the hallway light, sleeves rolled up from whatever he'd been helping with in the kitchen, that quiet architect's my love, his catching me off guard again. Mia had been my best friend since high school, the sister I chose when real family felt too far away, the one who knew every cracked piece of me and still stayed. Her husband had slipped into our world so naturally I almost missed it at first, becoming part of the little family we'd built without fanfare. He was the one who showed up on a random Tuesday with a toolbox when my faucet dripped endlessly, fixing it in silence while I hovered uselessly, his easy laugh making the cold apartment feel less empty. The one who remembered exactly how I took my coffee to creams, no sugar because he'd heard it once and filed it away like it mattered. Everything stayed safely in the just friends lane, or so I told myself, even as my chest tightened every time his voice carried from the other room. Those Friday dinners turned into my weekly lifeline, the only thread keeping me from unraveling completely in my silent apartment. But the moment I crossed their threshold it eased, just a little. Every time Ryan leaned across the table to hand me the wine bottle, his fingers inches from mine, that cedar wooden citrus scent of his cologne wrapped around me like a secret I had no right to breathe in. It was nothing, just a friendly hello at the door, his hand resting light on my back for the briefest second, but my pulse would stutter anyway and did hate myself for the way warmth bloomed under my ribs. "It's only cologne," I whispered later in the car, windows fogged, gripping the wheel until my knuckles whitened. "Stop. Please just stop." Week after week the moments stacked up like quiet kindling. I cowled and stopped adding to. His calloused palm brushing mine while we cleared plates, the rough texture lingering on my skin long after he turned away to rinse a glass. The low hum of Can't Help Falling in Love drifting from the speaker one night while Mia danced with their daughter in the living room, the little girl's feet stepping clumsy on her mom's toes, giggles floating through the air like something fragile. I sat on the couch pretending not to watch him, the way his eyes softened at the edges as he leaned against the counter, that easy laugh rumbling low. That texture of his sweater against my shoulder during one of those casual group hugs stayed imprinted for days afterward, a phantom warmth I caught myself tracing in the dark when sleep wouldn't come. Desire flickered then, small and terrifying, like the first spark in dry grass that could take the whole field if the wind shifted wrong. I felt the war inside me sharpen with every visit, the voice screaming, "Shess, your best friend, the one who held you through your worst nights," while another part ached for the nearness that made the emptiness back home feel louder. I was ashamed of how much I replayed those brushes, those scents, the way his breath felt warm when he laughed close by at some dumb joke he'd made. The hunger for connection pulled harder than guilt some nights, making me invent reasons to stay later, to help with one more dish, to let the almost moments stretch a second longer than they should. Yet I kept showing up, week after week, telling myself it was harmless, just friendship, just the loneliness talking. As we stood side by side loading the dishwasher that night, our elbows nearly touching in the narrow kitchen, his hand hovered near mine on the counter for a heartbeat too long. And I felt the spark catch, just a little, the air between us suddenly too thick to ignore. I pulled away first that night, my laugh too bright as I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, but the thickness in the air followed me all the way home. The rain started then, soft at first, tapping against the car windows like a question I didn't want to answer. By the next afternoon, the loneliness in my apartment had grown teeth, gnawing at the edges of my resolve until I reached for my phone. I started inventing reasons to be around them more and more, suggesting a movie night for the kids when Mia mentioned being tired, or dropping by unannounced with fresh pastries on Saturday mornings because I knew Ryan loved them. Each text, each visit felt like adding another log to a fire-ice war I could control. In the shower after, with the water beating down hot and relentless, I replayed every glance, every accidental touch, the brush of his fingers when he passed me a glass, the way his cologne would cling to my scarf for hours afterward. Guilt clawed at me, leaving marks I could almost feel. "Shess, your best friend, you monster," it'd mutter under the spray, eyes closed tight against the steam. But the silence waiting for me back home made the craving swell louder, filling the voids until it was all I could hear. Obsession had begun its silent takeover, wrapping tighter around my thoughts with every passing day. Those invented moments multiplied quietly. It offered to help bathe the kids or stay to fold the laundry, our elbows nearly grazing in the laundry room while Mia chatted from the other room, her voice, full of trust, only sharp in the internal war. I can't do this to her, not after everything we've been through. Yet the hunger for his nearness, the way his presence made the world feel less empty, pulled harder than any voice of reason. I hated how much I noticed the small things now, the low rumble of his laugh when the kids told a silly joke, the warmth that seemed to radiate from him even across the dinner table. The night the line snapped felt ordinary at first. Mia had an early flight, and after one too many glasses of wine she crashed early on the couch, her breathing steady and unaware in the dim living room. Ryan and I were left in the kitchen, the counter still warm from dinner. When I reached past him for the dish towel, his hand caught my waist, the touch firm yet gentle through my shirt, stopping me in place. He turned me slowly until we faced each other, bodies close enough that I could sense the heat coming off him in waves. "I've been thinking about this for months," he breathed, the words warm against my ear, his voice carrying a tremble that mirrored the one in my own chest. The proximity was overwhelming, his fingers pressing lightly into my side, our breaths mixing in the narrow space between us. My mind spun with the forbidden weight of it all. My best friend's husband, the man I had no right to want this badly, but the ache went out, holding me there as his face inched closer. His lips hovered a millimeter away, the almost touch sparking like lightning about to strike. And then the kiss that followed tasted like every forbidden thing it denied myself, the world fading until there was only the gravity of him and the surrender I could no longer fight, no return possible after that. It was a one-time mistake, I told myself again and again, the words a desperate loop in the quiet cabin. Mia would never know. No, our friendship would stay intact if I buried it deep enough. It changes nothing, I repeated like a prayer, my voice cracking on the last word. By evening his text lit up my phone, the notification pulling my gaze like a magnet. I stared, heart pounding, the battle between stop and don't stop raging fiercer than ever. But I answered. Rationalization became my new religion, twisting every justification to keep the fire alive without letting it consume the world we shared. Yet as the message left my screen, a deeper dread crept in alongside the rush, because I could feel the hunger already whispering for more, the ruins just one step away. When Maya's next work trip lit up the calendar, I felt the floor tilt under me, the house suddenly to quiet, the kids tucked in early with stories I barely heard. She kissed my cheek at the door, her trust wrapping around me like a scarf I didn't deserve, and drove away into the gray morning. Ryan stood beside me on the porch, our shoulders almost brushing, the cedarwood warmth of him drifting across the small space between us until my lungs forgot their rhythm. I told myself I was only staying to help with the dishes, nothing more. Yet when the last plate slid into the rack, his hand hovered near mine on the counter, close enough that the heat from his skin brushed the air above my wrist. Neither of us moved, the silence stretched, thick and trembling, until he whispered my name like a question he already knew the answer to. My breath caught, shallow and uneven, while inside me the storm roared louder. I can't chase my sister in everything but blood, yet the gravity of him pulled harder, drawing me one trembling step closer until our foreheads nearly touched. That night we crossed every line we'd drawn without ever saying the words. The way his presence filled the room, the low sound of his breathing assisting with mine in the dim light, the almost touch that finally happened and left me drowning in the ache of it all. Afterward I curled against his chest, tears slipping hot down my cheeks, not from joy but from the crushing weight of what we'd just done. We swore it would never happen again, voices hoarse and eyes averted, but the lie sat between us like a third person in the bed. We both knew the hunger had only grown teeth. The secret meetings multiplied like shadows at dusk, stolen lunches where our knees brushed under the table, and the world narrowed to the sound of his quiet laugh. Late-night texts made my phone glow in the dark like a guilty heartbeat, quick escapes to places where no one knew us and time felt stolen. Each time I left him I was wrecked, guilt carving deeper grooves into my chest, yet the emptiness at home made me crave the next stolen breath even more. I'd stare at Maya's name on my phone, thumb hovering, whispering apologies she'd never hear while my body still remembered the nearness of him. Then the messages were found. One ordinary Tuesday the living room became a battlefield, her voice cracking open like thunder, eyes wide with the kind of betrayal that doesn't heal. Ryan stood silent, hands in his pockets, staring at the floor as if the answers were written there. My tears came hot and endless, mixing with her sobs while the life we'd all built crumbled in real-time, friendships torched, reputations scattered like ash. To marriages reduced to rubble no one could sweep away. The exposure left every one of us bleeding in the open, raw and unrecognizable. In speaking now because the silence was killing whatever was left of me. I lost my best friend in a single afternoon, the woman who once held my hand through every heartbreak now gone forever. Ryan chose damage control, retreating into careful words and separate lives, the easy laugh I once loved replaced by polite distance that hurts worse than anger. The craving I kept hidden in the dark finally destroyed everything we touched. Even now, sitting here with the torn photo pieces curling on the sheets, I still feel that old pull when the wind carries a hint of cedarwood through the cracked motel window. Or would the almost have been enough to save us all? Tell me, reader, if the same fire had been burning quietly inside you, would you have stopped before the match struck, or are we all just one breath away from watching our world catch light?